This week, three major tragedies have been dominating the headlines, from an anti-Semitic mass shooting in Australia to another deadly shooting on a college campus in Rhode Island and a fatal stabbing involving a Hollywood legend. Right now, over a dozen people are still being treated in Australian hospitals after the country's deadliest shooting since 1996. On Sunday, 15 people were killed and 40 others injured in a mass shooting targeting Jewish people celebrating Hanukkah at Bondi Beach. Authorities say they believe it was a terrorist attack inspired by the Islamic State. And so far, all those killed have been identified as Jewish. One of the accused shooters has been charged with 59 offenses, including 15 counts of murder. The other gunman was shot and killed at the scene. Throughout the investigation, Australia has dealt with questions about anti-Semitism, gun control, and police protections for Jewish people. The Prime Minister says he's ready to update legislation such as Australia's hate speech laws and give law enforcement and intelligence agencies whatever powers are necessary.
We need to learn any lessons that are learnt from this, undertake stronger action, undertake any legislative change, undertake any powers, additional powers that are needed across the board. To work with the Jewish community, we want to stamp out and eradicate anti-Semitism from our society.
Now, less than 24 hours before that, there was another major shooting, this one in the U.S. It happened at Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island. Two students were killed, 18-year-old Mukhamaziz Umerzakov and 19-year-old Ella Cook. 9 others were injured. Umerzakov was a freshman from Virginia whose family immigrated to the U.S. from Uzbekistan. Cook was a sophomore from Alabama who was involved in her church and served as a vice president of the Brown College Republicans. Authorities are still searching for the shooter, and the first person of interest they identified has since been released. Less than 2 hours after the shooting, President Donald Trump posted on Truth Social saying that a suspect was in custody, but he later walked that back, saying that Brown University police had reversed their own statement. The next morning, FBI Director Kash Patel said agents had detained a person of interest based on a lead from Providence police, but that also changed. The person was released about 12 hours later, and Providence police clarified the lead actually came from the FBI, not local officers. Just 2 days later, Trump took to Truth Social again, this time posting claims about the cause of death for Hollywood director Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle. Police say they got into an argument with their son, Nick Reiner, Saturday night, and detectives believe he killed them the next day. Their son has been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder for their deaths. But according to Trump's post, Rob Reiner was killed, quote, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome. He said Reiner was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of President Donald J. Trump. He later doubled down on those very comments.
Well, I wasn't a fan of his at all. He was a deranged person as far as Trump is concerned. The Russia hoax, he was one of the people behind it. I think he hurt himself in career-wise. He became like a deranged person, Trump derangement syndrome. So I was not a fan of Rob Reiner at all in any way, shape, or form. I thought he was very bad for our country.
These comments from Trump were condemned by many, including a former Trump ally, Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene.
I thought that statement was absolutely, completely below the office of the President of the United States, classless, and it was just wrong. From my understanding, what I've seen on the news, it was drug abuse and mental illness. And many families across America deal with family members that are drug addicts or have mental health issues. And I think the President should have responded with compassion and talked about those issues. He didn't have to make it about politics.
Just last night, Trump's presidential address contained multiple inaccuracies. For instance, he said inflation has stopped. Well, it hasn't. The basic year-over-year measure of inflation is actually up since he took office. Trump also made false claims about falling prices and stated that prescription drug costs have been cut by 500%, which is mathematically impossible because that would mean that your pharmacy would be paying you to pick up your prescription. Inaccuracies and misinformation from the Trump administration extend far beyond this week, including back to when 2 National Guard members were shot last month. On the night of the National Guard shooting that killed one National Guard member and injured another, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem posted that the suspect, an Afghan national, had entered the country, quote unquote, unvetted. This claim was later contradicted by multiple news outlets. That reporting shows the suspect underwent extensive vetting and previously worked as part of a CIA-directed unit in Afghanistan targeting Taliban commanders. At a House hearing last week, Noem acknowledged the man had been vetted under the Biden administration, but questioned whether that process was sufficient. He was formally granted asylum earlier this year by U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. Now, misinformation also surfaced elsewhere. On the day of the shooting, West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrisey initially posted that both guardsmen had been killed, then followed up minutes later, citing conflicting reports. But elected officials sharing misinformation is nothing new. Tim Ryan, a former 9 Newser who teaches U.S. history at MSU Denver, says every presidential administration tells a story in a way that benefits that administration. It's human nature, in a way. He said the Vietnam War and Watergate are just 2 examples of this in U.S. history. What was shared by different administrations about how the U.S. was doing in the Vietnam War, as well as the false information given by the White House surrounding the cover-up scandal known today as Watergate, weakened the trust that Americans have in their government. According to Ryan, that mistrust leads to more polarization, which then makes it hard to see facts and solve problems. And although he says this is a trend in U.S. history, our current situation is unique.
This cycle of misinformation, lack of trust, lack of ability to communicate with one another, lack of agreed upon basic truths, basic respect for truth is suffering now more than ever. Whether you support or oppose President Trump, there's no comparison to this kind of approach to truth and information in our history with respect to the president.
And while we're on the topic of transparency, let's talk about a photo series that centers on exactly that. Unfiltered, unedited, close-up pictures taken as part of a Vanity Fair story on Trump's inner circle that have gone viral. If you're on social media, you've probably seen them and seen what people are saying about them. Some users call the pictures petty, others praise them for seemingly dissing officials. But as photographer Christopher Anderson told The Washington Post, this was not a diss or commentary, but the truth, an effort to break through the, quote, theater of politics. The close and revealing nature of the shots, he said, Trump's images that are, quote unquote, stage managed. Anderson added that, like a good journalist, his job is not to make someone look good or bad, but to capture reality. The lack of editing has caused a stir online, but Anderson told the Post that to questions about why he chose not to retouch blemishes, his response is, quote, because if I had, that would be a lie. I would be hiding the truth of what I saw there. If you've been watching the show for a while, you know we love to give weekly shout-outs to people who are making Colorado a better place. And as we wrap up the year, we'd like to put some of those folks back in the spotlight. Consider it a shout-outs wrapped. We want to start with a Colorado school helping people overcome food insecurity through gardening. CSU Extension's Grow and Give program has been teaching people how to grow food at home and donate the surplus since 2020. Gardeners can grow a little extra if they're able to, things like potatoes and squash or some winter produce examples listed on their website. And then, using the Fresh Food Connect app, people can search for nearby food banks or hunger relief agencies that accept homegrown produce and donate.
Homegrown and local produce offers an opportunity for that nutrient-dense food to get in somebody's belly who needs it, right? And oftentimes those are prized donations. So it's something that people are looking for at food banks and they're not always on the shelf. You can grow zucchini, you can donate some tomatoes, you can grow green beans and donate those locally. But I think it's showing up, making the donation and making that connection with a food bank and starting to understand what food insecurity looks like in your communities and the opportunity for everyday Coloradans to contribute and make a difference.
Another one of our favorite shout-outs isn't for a person, but a goat. A 3-year-old goat named Pongo is helping raise money for the Salvation Army. The animal is serving as a bell ringer in southern Colorado, and as donors confirm, he's part of the reason they're contributing.
What motivated you to donate today?
Well, we always do, but definitely the goat ringing the bell was, it definitely closed the deal.
Since 2023, Pongo and his handler have averaged more than $1,000 in donations to the Salvation Army. And the walking miracle, Amanda Farron, takes our next spot. Amanda is making waves and inspiring others just by walking. Despite dealing with a terminal illness called scleroderma and having broken over 30 bones, Amanda is taking on a journey to complete more than 180 miles of walking over the course of multiple marathons before the end of the year. From Chicago to Berlin, she's bringing positivity to every course she hits.
I wear my sparkles and I get all excited because I do love to do these races, but nothing about the way I do races is typical. I show up for every race I've ever done, every half marathon and full marathon, in full sparkles, ready to go, because every step for me is truly a miracle and a gift.
Amanda has done nearly 170 miles so far, so she's just 10 away from her goal. And last but not least, we want to talk about the nonprofit Move Through Yoga. Founder Stephanie Gross and her team are making sure that yoga is accessible for everyone, including those with intellectual, developmental, and physical disabilities. Gross says that adaptive yoga can be a game changer for folks with disabilities, giving them more ways to regulate their emotions and bodies and improving their sense of belonging with their communities and themselves.
Oftentimes for our population, they have been told that they can't do something. So what we do is really find ways for them to do something. And we have students who can do handstand, may not look the traditional handstand, right? But it is an opportunity for them to feel a sense of empowerment that they have found in their own way a handstand. Not everyone is going to look the same when they come into a yoga studio. And it is our obligation as human beings to really be able to see that we are more alike than different.
And coming up in January, Move Through Yoga will actually be joining us live in studio to show us how it's possible to bring adaptive yoga into our own lives. And as always, we'd love some help to figure out who deserves a shout out as we head into the new year. Whether it's one person, a whole organization, or even an animal, we want to hear about the people who are making a difference in your community. So send us a text at 303-871-1491 and tell us about the folks you think deserve a 9 shout out. And don't be surprised when we reach back out to ask you more about your special people. And if you want to see more Culture Report or any of our 9 News content, you can find us on the 9 News Plus app or 9news.com.